Hey guys, welcome back to another video. Today we're going to be taking a look at the 2024 presidential election map between Kamala Harris and Donald Trump based off of the most recent and latest polls from RCP, the Real Clear Politics, averages in every single swing or battleground state. That's what we're going to be focusing on. But before we get started, make sure you guys are subscribed. Click the bell so you don't miss out on my content as we are approaching 4,000 subscribers. Also, if you're interested, we have memberships. You can find links to that in the description section. Also, don't forget to press the like button, get this video a thumbs up, and share this video as well. Every single state left in gray will be filled out in today's video. So as of right now, on average, Kamala Harris is beating Donald Trump by roughly 1 percentage point. She's polling at 47.8%, as you can see right here, to Donald Trump's 46.7% on average with the five-way race, including all the third-party and independent candidates, Kennedy, West, and Stein, which really would hurt Donald Trump ultimately at the end of the day. So let's begin with our first state to start off this video. Oregon is not typically a swing state, but the latest poll surprisingly has it within single digits, which is not good news for Kamala Harris, and it's the exact opposite of what's happening in any other swing state. Because you take a look at any other battleground state, for example, Michigan, in which Harris is doing significantly better than Joe Biden, or even a state like Georgia, in which Harris is actually having her numbers rise in the polls. But, for example, Oregon is an outlier in which that state is one of the few in which Harris is doing worse than Joe Biden, which is really confusing, and that's why the polls are really off in my opinion. So as of right now, according to the latest poll from Hoffman Research, she's up by 5 points in a typical solid blue state, Oregon obviously. She's up by 5 points on Donald Trump from July 30th. So that's going to be a lean margin in the state of Oregon. Pretty surprising, I would say. I was not expecting that from the latest poll. And now moving on to the next state is Ohio, in which the latest one has Trump up by 9 from Fabrizio and Anzalone. He's at 48%, to Kamala Harris is 39%, and Kennedy is polling at 9 percentage points, which in my opinion, I think that number is too high for him. I don't think that's realistic. Or actually, he's taking more away from Trump, so maybe he'll win Ohio more than just 9 percentage points. And this poll was conducted on July 31st. That's going to be considered a likely margin for Donald Trump in the state of Ohio. And now the next state is going to be the state of Florida, in which the latest poll, as you can see right here from the USA Today, has Donald Trump up by 5. This is extremely shocking because it is not supposed to be this close. Reminder, keep in mind that DeSantis won this state by nearly 20 points just 2 years ago, and Marco Rubio had a double-digit victory in this state as well. And this state's getting redder. The entirety of Florida has just abandoned the Democratic Party. And the fact that he's up by 5, according to the latest poll, is not good news for Donald Trump. In the state of Florida, he's supposed to win it by way more. I would say by probably closer to 9 or 10 percentage points. Realistically, that's going to be considered a lean margin. So, according to the latest poll, Harris is going to perform very well in the state of Florida. It's going to be surprisingly closer than what we expected before that. And now, the next state is going to be Minnesota, in which right now, Kamala Harris is up by 6 percentage points, according to Fox News. She's polling at 47% to Donald Trump's 41%, and Kennedy getting roughly 7% of the overall vote in this state. This is going to be considered a likely margin. And keep in mind, obviously, Tim Walz, her VP pick, has this home state advantage. She comes from the state, so I really think he can really help her. I think she can do very well with the women vote as well. So the latest poll, according to Fox, from July 26th, by the way, this is before, I believe, she announced Tim Walz as the VP, so we don't yet see that impact. So maybe the state's actually bluer than just 6 percentage points. So that's the margin for Kamala Harris in the state of Minnesota. It's a likely margin. And now the next state is going to be New Hampshire, in which the latest poll shows her up by 7 percentage points, conducted from the Emerson College, all the way back from July 30th. Obviously, this is before Tim Walz as the VP, and I think he would help her electorally, so maybe she wins the state by even more, greater than that. And that's going to be considered a likely margin. So the latest poll suggests that she's going to get the exact same margin that Biden did in this state just 4 years ago. So she's supposed to perform, in par or in line with Joe Biden's performance in the state of New Hampshire. Also, this state has a lot of college-educated voters, which really is good electorally for Democrats. And then as for Virginia, the latest poll has her up by 5, conducted from, I would say, last month. Obviously, the sample size is really small, so I don't trust this, but it was conducted from the New York Times and Siena, in which she's up by 5. That's going to be considered a lean margin. One thing to mention is that Donald Trump got endorsed here by the governor, Glenn Youngkin, who had an amazing victory back in 2021. So maybe that could really sway things, but still, I think Tim Walz as the VP would really help Kamala in the long run, especially in this state. And as for North Carolina, the latest poll has Trump up by 1%, conducted from the Bloomberg and Morning Consult. He's polling at 45 to her 44%, and Kennedy at 5%. I think that's pretty much accurate from July 30th. So this was before the VP pick, Tim Walz, obviously. So that's going to be considered a tilt margin for Donald Trump in the state of North Carolina, extremely close. Now, this poll is showing that North Carolina is closer right now than it was in 2020, because right now, according to the latest poll, or the most recent one from the state, has Trump up by 1. Meanwhile, in 2020, he won it by more than that. He won it by 1.6% against Joe Biden. And so I don't think I can believe that she will perform better than Joe Biden's 2020 margins in this state. And I just don't see that. And the next state is going to be Nevada, in which it is a dead tie as of right now. Trump and Harris are both at 43 to 43%, according to Bloomberg and Morning Consult. And Kennedy's polling at 7 percentage points. And so basically, this is going to be considered a toss-up, 50-50 for either candidate. And we're going to be, leaving Nevada purple as of right now. We're not going to be filling out for either candidate because it is a tie, according to the latest poll. And the next state is going to be Georgia, in which Trump has to flip this if he wants to win the election. Obviously, he probably will. According to, Fabrizio and Anzalone, he's up by 2 percentage points, conducted from August 7th, so this month, actually pretty recently, with all the third-party candidates included, Kennedy, West, and Stein. That's going to be considered a lean margin. Donald Trump's going to win Georgia by a couple percentage points. And then the next state is Michigan, in which the most recent poll from August 9th, pretty recently from New York Times and Siena, with all the third-party candidates included, Harris is up by 5 percentage points. This is probably the most surprising one other than Oregon, in which she's also up by 5%. And this is where the polls really get, I would say, not believable in my opinion, because you have a state, in Oregon, in which Biden won by double digits in 2020, but all of a sudden, it's the same margin for Harris within the state of Michigan. Also, that just makes no sense. Because how is Michigan and Oregon tied in terms of the margins at 5%? I just don't believe that. But regardless, that's going to be considered a lean margin for Kamala Harris. Also, she is performing way better than Joe Biden's margins in a lot of these states as well. She is an improvement in terms of the replacement candidate. And then Pennsylvania, from August 9, same pollster, New York Times and Siena, has Kamala Harris up by 2 percentage points in the state of Pennsylvania. And this was after she announced Tim Walz as the VP. So you can see that effect in there, because the previous poll before that had Trump up in the state of Pennsylvania. According to Bloomberg and Morning Consult, this is a left-leaning, biased internal pollster. Trump's up by 2. But then after, with the Tim Walz effect as the VP, you can see that she's up by 2, so that's a swing of 4 percentage points to the left, a lean margin in favor of Kamala Harris in the state of Pennsylvania. And then you have Wisconsin, which she's up by 6 percentage points. I would say this is the most shocking out of any other, obviously, other than Oregon, which I don't see how that it can get that close. New York Times and Sandy has her up by 6 from August 9, and Kennedy's polling at 5 percentage points in the state of Wisconsin. So, according to the polls on RCP, Wisconsin is the bluest Rust Belt state in this election out of the most important 3, which I just don't see how that's going to happen. In my opinion, it would probably be Pennsylvania, because Wisconsin was the reddest in 2020. It voted for Biden by 0.6. Meanwhile, the Michigan voted for Biden by nearly 3 points, by the way, and Pennsylvania voted for him by 1.2%. So maybe Wisconsin can be the bluest, because obviously it was Biden's home state in 2020, or at least he grew up in there, so he had that electoral map advantage, and it's still the difference wasn't really far enough between Pennsylvania and Wisconsin. And also you have the large uncommitted vote in Michigan. So yes, maybe Wisconsin can be the bluest in 2024, but by a margin of 6 percentage points, a likely one, I just don't see it. And the last and final state to cover before we end off this video is going to be Arizona. With all the third-party candidates included, Kamala Harris has a lead of 4 percentage points according to the latest poll on the RCP averages from Bloomberg and Morning Consult, in which Kamala Harris has a lead margin. That's the lead for her in Arizona from July 30th. Obviously, this is before the Tim Walz VP selection. So that's going to be a lean margin. If this were to happen, she would probably have to hold on to Maricopa County as Biden did in 2020. So 281 electoral votes for Kamala Harris to Donald Trump's 251, according to the most recent and latest polls from RCP. Let me know which states you agree with or disagree with in the comment section down below. Keep in mind, this is not my prediction. This is a really weird map because there's no way in which Oregon is the same margin as Michigan. I just don't see how that can happen, which is why I believe the polls are complete trash and we should take them for a grain of salt. But one last final reminder before I end off this video is to subscribe, click the bell so you don't miss out on my content, press the like button, give this video a thumbs up. Also, if you're interested, we have memberships. You can find a link to that in the description section. Thank you everyone for watching.